Hey guys, welcome back. What you're looking at here are some of the materials we're going to be using to begin the final coloring process for the railroad ties today. The ties, just to recap, have been gone over already with an initial coating of a classic gray stain from Minwax as well. Again, as the description would tell you, the ties come out with a nice pale gray color. Go ahead and just kind of pan down here a little bit. Zoom in a little bit now that everything's dried up just so you can get a better peek at things. Okay, so as you can tell there, like I said, things are dry. Nice good coloring to them. And to recap, some of you might wonder, okay, why are we going with a gray color? We're trying to, color things brown. Well, as I mentioned in earlier videos that I've done, the gray color, after this final brownish, muddy colored mixture gets applied to here, in certain areas it'll kind of bleed through. It'll kind of show through a little bit. And the effect of that kind of creates is that the ties are starting to get a little bit of age to them, that they're starting to get a little bit bleached out by the sun and that type of thing, and the creosote's starting to fade out and diminish from the tie itself. So, again, just creates a nice final look, and we're going to be beginning today, like I said, by mixing these two products together. What we've got here is the raw umber, pigment from Woodland Scenics. Typically, it's used to color plaster molds, rocks, things like that when you're doing mountains or ground cover work. And then also some ebony stain from Minwax. What I typically do is I'll mix these two together for the final coloring on the ties. But what's nice about it is, in a previous video I did on this very same topic, I got some questions, some emails and stuff like that, and I thought I would just touch base and talk about those for a moment before we begin here. These two components will mix together very well. I've never really kept track of a ratio, so to speak, on how much to how much. For lack of a better description, I guess you could say maybe 10 parts pigment to 1 part stain. And we just add just a little bit of the ebony to that mixture just to darken it up a hair. I found that by using the pigment by itself on the ties, it tends to leave the ties not colored dark enough, if that makes sense. It needed just a little bit extra, and that mixture gave it to me, and came out great before, so I have no doubt it's going to work just fine now. Real simple process. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and reposition the camera a little bit, get things set up, and I'll take you through the process of how we mix stuff and what we're going to do here. Okay guys, we're back. I've gotten some things out of the way and ready to go here. Excuse me. Now, for some areas on the layout on your ties, if you're trying to replicate maybe some oil drippings, grease drippings, that maybe you'll see typically falling down the center of the track, or in some cases along the edges of the ties from leaking journal boxes and things of that sort, now would be the time to go ahead and maybe add that additional coloring. You could do that a number of ways. What I like to do in the beginning here is I'll use some of the ebony stain by itself. And let's get some on an old artist brush, really. Get some of the excess off. And then I will come and just kind of drag it real quick right down the center-ish of the ties. It doesn't got to be exact. And then just start brushing it out. In this area here, it's a little bit heavy. We're kind of coming through a curve here, so maybe momentum carries some of the grease and oil across to the opposite sides a little bit, okay? We can have this on here. And again, just feather it out. A little will go a long way, okay? Especially with this dark of a color. And what we would do typically is let this portion dry before we begin applying our top coat. Let me see if I can bring in a little bit more here. Reposition just slightly. Just one moment here. Okay. So as you can see here, from that angle, it's going to look pretty dark. And at this point it is. But as it dries, it will lighten up a little bit, and it'll give you that tone, that kind of understated area of, like I said, oil, grease accumulations, that type of a thing. I will not do this on everything that I'm hand laying. I'm just going to do it in certain areas just for an added visual effect, a little bit of pop. Now, for that, I just, like I said, used Just a little artist brush here. Nothing fancy. Cheap little thing I think I picked up at the local Michaels by us. Just, a few bucks for a set of 6 or something like that. What I like to do is go ahead and widen out here a little bit more. Okay. Pardon my arm reaching in front of you there. What I like to have is I'll use a scrap piece of plywood. In this case, I'm just going to use what I built my little test section of track on earlier. And I like to use this as just kind of like a mixing palette, because I don't mix up a big batch of this at once. I'll just do a little bit at a time as we go. What I found by doing that is you just naturally end up creating very subtle differences in color every time you mix it, which is great, because all those ties out there on the main line and on our trackage, they don't weather and age the same. Some have been replaced, some haven't. Some are just taking a little bit more abuse than others for some reason. So by doing that, that enables you to create some variation in your ties, creates a little bit more visual interest, and again, change things as you progress around the layout in different areas. Like I said, some areas have this staining in the middle of the ties. Some other sections I might just do it along the very edges. Again, to simulate like leaking journal boxes or grease that has come off the rods of steam locomotives, something like that. But again, nice little scrap piece of wood, it uses a palette, works well. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to take some of our raw umber pigment from Woodland Scenics, give it a good shake. If it's new or obviously been sitting for a little while, you want to get everything mixed up nice and thoroughly. And what I'll come along and do here is I'm just going to apply a little bit on my board here. That's about the size of a $50, give or take. And I'll take my brush and I'll just dip it in a little bit of our ebony stain here. And I come over and I will just shake a few drops of this stain into this pigment. I did this in one of my earlier videos on how I stain my ties. You guys can go back and review that if you like. And I just put in a few drops into the stain here, okay? See if I can tighten up a little bit for you guys. Give me just a moment. I'll reposition slightly. Actually, let me just take the camera off the tripod here, give you a better view. Apologize for the shakiness, bear with me. Okay, let me zoom back out a bit here. So as you can see, that's only about 3 or 4 drops of stain on there, and it's just sitting on the surface right now of our pigment. So I'm going to be taking the brush I used to drop the stain in there, and I'm just going to mix it up. And use a brush of whatever size you like, and go ahead and start applying the coloring to the ties. So I'm going to go and put you back in the tripod now. Sorry for the shakiness. A one-man show here, so. Okay. So I'll just take my brush, like I said, and you just want to mix this stuff up till you get a good, consistent blend. Okay. And the final color, like I said, it's entirely up to you. If you choose to go this route. A lot of guys like to use paint. Some guys like to just stick with straight wood stains. But again, whatever you like. Okay. If there's a few little spots that don't get completely mixed, it's not really going to harm anything. Okay. But this is our final color here. Okay, you can kind of see, hopefully, it's kind of a muddy brown. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and begin applying some of this. Just one second here. I want to get you guys a bit of a different angle. If I can, I'm working in a tight spot here in one of the curves of the layout here. So let me go ahead and try to zoom down a bit. Okay, try and work on this area here. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll just get a little bit of the material on my brush, and don't be bashful with it. Load your brush up, okay? And then we'll come in here, and we're just going to begin applying a nice covering right over the tops of our ties, okay? And be sure to, Get the edges of your ties, of course, and then between them as well. You know, this most definitely is, and I will tell you right now, I enjoy doing this, but I will tell you, it's extremely tedious. If you find yourself not being much of a patient person, this is probably not going to be to your liking. Because you're going virtually tie by tie. But I found the hard way, I don't mind saying, that if you're not prepared to take the time with this kind of stuff, you're not going to achieve the results that I think a lot of us who choose to hand lane, who choose to go this route, are looking for. It requires patience. It requires some time. It requires, again, just going along, not being in a hurry, and taking your time. Now, again, if you're not a patient person, you know, you might just naturally, because again, you're not a patient person, you might really just not enjoy doing this, okay? With the camera a bit more there. I'm trying to get you guys a good shot. Unfortunately, it's hard for me to tell if this thing is focusing as well as I'd like it to. We're blurring out there a little bit. Okay. In a minute, I will take the camera back up and take you guys right in there to look at the ties, but I wanted to get a few done first and give you a little bit more to look at than just a couple little ties. But again, load your brush up. Don't be bashful with this stuff. In the grand scheme of things, this is minor. Because when I begin setting on rail and spiking things and whatnot, that's when things really will slow down a little bit, just by the natural order of how I got to do things. You know, I'm going to be spiking every tie. 4 spikes per tie with tie plates. Also going to be incorporating joint bars every 39 feet, okay, just like the sections of rail used to be. And along the way also putting on and soldering my track feeders, you know, and drilling the holes and getting those through the layout, getting ready to go when I begin the wiring and that type of stuff. So that's going to be a slower process. But again, getting back to this though, this is what you need to do, is take your time. Let me take you in here for a little bit of a closer look now. Get you right up in there a bit. Pardon me again for shaking you around, I'm sorry. All right, let me zoom back out on the focus here. It's a bit hard to really get an idea for the coloring, unfortunately, because of all the light I got on right now. It's probably tending to look a little whited out or a little blue. But there is the look while it's wet. When it dries, what'll happen, and if you go back and look at some of my previous videos that I did on how I color my ties, you'll see the final look when it's dried and how this pigment color I just applied now, what happens is it tends to want to separate just slightly. I kind of liken it to water beating up on a car that's been freshly waxed. You know, it separates slightly and it allows a little bit of that gray color to come through and really just add to that look, that, you know, starting to weather, starting to bleach out kind of a look. Okay, and as you can see there too, the other thing I like is when I sanded using the aggressive 80 grit, left a real rough texture on the surface, which I like, because that's going to again show that, you know, things are a bit distressed and used and aged and all that. So this is the final look while it's wet. I will come back and I will reshoot a few more segments of this when it's dry, just so you guys can take a peek and see what it looks like when it's dried out. But again, if you want to see, you know, larger areas done ahead of time, go back and watch those older videos I did. I believe it's the third part I did on those, and you'll get to see what a lot of it looks like all dried and with some rail getting laid on top of it and stuff. So But again, very simple mixture. Again, just a brown concoction, really. Like I said, a little bit of pigment, a little bit of stain, and that has given me the final look that I've got there. So another thing I thought I'd talk about very briefly in this video is I had somebody on one of my videos post a comment about some different methods of going about and staining ties and whatnot, and excuse me. The one comment was that some guys, they'll take their ties, put them in like a big Ziploc bag, dump the stain into the bag, and just, you know, scrunch things around in the bag, mix it all up, and get things all stained at once that way. And then take them out of the bag to dry, of course, and then when they're dry, they'll come back and glue them all down, and which you could definitely do. You'll get a lot of ties colored very quickly that way. The only problem I've ever experienced with that, I shouldn't say problem, but the only reality of that is, so you come back, you glue your ties down. Well, you're still going to be left with some high spots and low spots. It's just the way wood is. They're not all going to be perfect. So as such, you're going to be coming back in there, and you're going to be sanding stuff. And the odds are, you know, maybe 40-50% of those ties are going to have some high or low spots on there that are going to get sanded out. And you're going to be coming back with a brush, touching those back up anyway. But again, that's just a personal preference. You know, you could definitely do it that way. It'll work, and you will color a ton of ties very rapidly that way. I just preferred to go the route that I did because of that fact. I knew that, okay, if I got to come back and sand anything, I'm going to be sanding off the stain, or lots of it. I'm going to have to go back and touch some up. For me, it made more sense to just glue them all down, let them dry, get the stain put on, and I'm done. Since I have stained it, I have gone back with a straight edge and checked the ties to make sure that I didn't create any new high spots, because sometimes the grain of the wood, it'll lift a little bit, it'll swell, you know, as it soaks in the stain, and I really haven't ran into that at all or found that to be a problem at this point. So in that regard, I lucked out. I did okay with it. But again, that's why I don't go that route, because I'm going to be going back, touching them up, and putting the gray stain on like I did went fast enough. I pretty much have the layout broken into sections in my mind, and I'm going to work on an entire section before I move on to the next. And simply what that means is I'm going to put down the ties, I'm going to stain the ties, I'm going to then come back, put my rail down, all the details, get everything spiked in, get the power drops soldered on, get them put through the sub road bed, and be ready to be wired. Then when all that's done in that section, I'll move on to the next section. That's just my methodology. That's just how I like to do it. It helps me keep things organized in my head a little bit better. So, but that said, endless numbers of ways you guys can stain these ties. And there's tons of videos of them on YouTube. You know, mine is just going to be one of the bunch. So these really, again, are just intended to show what I'm doing, how I'm doing it. So, and like I said, if it gives you some ideas of what to do or what not to do or whatever, any of that's okay. Whatever works for you guys. It's, truthfully, I'm really just enjoying the process of doing this and making the videos and getting some of the responses I've been getting. It's just nice, it's nice to share ideas. The older I get, I've said it in other videos, the more and more I realize that it's not a matter so much of something being right or wrong. It tends to more often be a question of just things being different, a different approach, a different way of doing something. I mean, let's face it, we all think differently, we all like different things, we all have different skill levels. Some of us excel more at one area than others, and that's natural, and that's how it's supposed to be, but when we combine all those ideas and we combine those skill sets and share them with everybody, then that's what makes us all better modelers, and I think it forwards the hobby a bit. So that said, again, my long-winded approach as usual, but again, just wanted to kind of recap that and show you how I'm going about doing it this time, and how I'm going to continue to do it throughout the course of all the track that I hand lay and stuff. Which at this point is beginning to become more and more. I'm going to still be using the microengineering track in a lot of places, but so much of this layout is really right up in your view. I mean, literally within inches of where you could stand to view the track work. I kind of designed myself into a corner here where I need to do some more hand laying again, because it's just to me that there's just a difference, and to my eyes, you can see the difference. So for me and my tastes, I'm gonna probably hand lay more than what I initially planned on. But that being said, let me just reiterate, please don't feel like you guys have to hand lay a thing. You know, our time is finite, you know what I mean? We're not all gonna be here forever, so do what you enjoy, model your way, and God, please, you know, make videos of it and share them with everybody. You know, we all want to see what's going on and learn. You know, we all can't make it to certain modeling clinics, so by putting it out here on YouTube, let's face it, we can all view stuff and learn something from the comfort of our own home. You know, so anyway, kind of a long video, a lot of yapping. Sorry about that, but thanks for watching, and again, I'm going to come back when this is all dried, and I will take you guys down into here and show you what things look like dried, and what the final appearance is going to be. And like I said, it should turn out like it did before, and if that's the case, I think we'll all be pleasantly pleased. So thanks for watching. Stay tuned. There'll be a lot more videos coming. Hey guys, welcome back. Thought I would just take you through and show you a little bit of some of the stuff now that it's dried a bit. In this area, I decided to just paint a couple of them black. These are going to be like freshly replaced, you know, new creosoted ties. So again, just something a little bit of variance there. But again, just going to kind of go back over the ties here a little bit. A few little wet spots here and there, but you get the basic idea of what the look's going to be. We may come across as being a little bit dark, but you got to remember, when we go back later on and spread ballast over these, the powder and dust that's in the ballast is going to mix into these ties a little bit, into the grain of the wood, you know, slightly, and it's going to lighten it up just a bit. So I think that's going to give us a good final appearance. But again, you can see the difference from the gray down here into what we just completed, this little section this evening here. And again, it is going to get lightened up a bit, and when the ballast goes down. So I just try to maybe take you guys straight overhead a little bit here if I can. Get a bit of a view that way. But you can get you get the idea. These over here, obviously, these are still drying, so still pretty dark. But over here, we get the look, and that nice brownish tinge we're going for, a little bit of grime in the middle. And I'm going to continue with that process, finishing the remainder of this section of ties that I have down, and begin laying some track. So the fun is about to begin, so stay tuned.